technology, right? So, did you have indoor plumbing?
In the later years, but not till the later years, so had to go to our house.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did you get water for your baths and cooking and?
We had a windmill up on the hill, and we had a steep hill, and the windmill was on the top there, and then the pipes running down to the halfway down the hill into a cistern, and
Right by the house?
No, up by the barn, and then we piped the water from there all the way down to the house, and that was a long ways.
That was very smart.
Yeah, but we dug it all by hand.
Wow.
I didn't do it. We had a guy that come and work for us that dug. It took him maybe 2-3 weeks.
No, because one lady that I talked to, they just had a pump outside, and to get water they had to go like across the yard to get to the pump for the water, which must have been less convenient, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Then did you have a telephone?
Right, yeah, on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember when I was maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, our telephone bill was $6 for the whole year.
Oh.
We had one wire going to town, and we lived, like I said, I lived about 5 miles from town, but they took the shortcut up the hill, through the woods and down the hill and up the hill, and that one wire was on a pole, or it could be nailed to a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And with the brackets, you had to have glass brackets, to then short out. And anyway, that was our phone service. And our call when the phone rang, our place was 3 long.
Oh, that's how the numbers work.
Yeah, and maybe a long and a short and a long maybe will be the neighbor, or it could be whatever.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now you said your mother had one of those cook stoves.
Cook stove, yeah.
And outside of chicken, what was your favorite thing to eat when you were a kid?
Oh, I would say potatoes and meatballs.
Good Norwegian food, right?
Yeah, that was maybe some of it still is maybe today, meatballs.
I wish I had a meatball right now. What were some of the social things that your family did when you were a kid?
Play cards, like that, you mean?
Yeah.
We used to play cards in the wintertime. We used to walk. It was maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of us living in a short distance. Maybe from here to the hospital uptown here.
Oh, yeah.
About that distance was maybe about 5 farmers, and we in the wintertime we'd walk, and then have a car to get in because it had water on the radiator, so you had to put water in the radiator to when you drove the cars. You had to drain the water out. This is in the early years now. When I was that was in the 30s, and. But anyway, we used to go play whist, and the neighbors, they fixed lunch. We had lunch and a lot of fun.
It sounds like fun. And did you have any cousins and uncles and aunts living nearby, too?
No, not really. No, not that I can just think of it. That used to come. In those years, no.
How did you get to town and to school in the winter?
Well, like I said, when I went to country school, I only had a distance like from I didn't have much further than from here to the highway.
Oh, that was lucky.
Yeah.
So you walked.
Yeah.
What about when the snow would be that deep?
Yeah. Yeah, and no, that's all the further I had to walk to school.
So how often did you come into town?
Oh, we didn't go to town too often. Um, like in at Christmas time, we were lucky to get to town once.
Really?
At Christmas
Really?
time.
So you mostly just stayed out in the country then?
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
when you did go to town, do you remember what it was like? What you liked to do when you came to town?
Well, I told it, didn't were you the one that I talked to up at the Legion?
Yeah.
You were the one?
Mm-hmm.
And I told you about Jerry, what he told my dad. You know, I come with my dad to town with horses in a wagon. I wonder if he maybe didn't have a load of wood on. He used to haul wood. He used to cut wood and saw off chunks and all to bring up to sell to people in town for a little income. But anyway, I remember I come with my dad this day. We went to town. We went into Jerry's. And Jerry says to my dad, Halvor, that was my dad's name. Halvor, han där ska få dotter mi. Ain't the daughter I mean? You don't know what that
No, I don't.
He said, Halvor, he said, he's going to get one of my daughters. But I never got him though. He's joking, you know. I was maybe about 10 or so. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Yeah.
Did you ever see a circus when you were a kid?
No.
The circus didn't come around?
No, not that I can remember.
Did you have a favorite store in town?
Ellingson's IGA or Ellingson's grocery store. We went there's where we done most of our business. Ellingson used to be our neighbor, and he moved to town, and he had a grocery store.
Lots of Ellingsons around here.
Yeah.
So, do you remember any blizzards?
Any what?
Blizzards? Any real bad snowfalls that were...
Yep, I can remember a blizzard, Armistice Day, Armistice Storm. You must have heard about that. You never did?
Nope.
Armistice Storm, that's about Thanksgiving time, wouldn't it be?
In November.
Yeah, it would be in November. I remember our neighbor come to pick corn for us. And that was maybe about 40 or so, 1940 or so. Anyway, his neighbor come, but he had a brand new corn picker. And he had a pretty new tractor. Wasn't new, but it was on steel wheels. And the corn picker was on steel wheels. And it pulled the wagon along the side of the corn picker. You had to unhook the wagon and put the pole, had a deal out and the pole laid in here and put a chain on it. And he'd pull the wagon along the side of the corn picker and pick corn. And then they'd take the full load of corn and go home and shovel it off by hand and come back and get another one with it. And this morning I remember it so well that morning. It was a beautiful day. And shortly after noon, maybe about 2, 3 o'clock, it started storming. And this guy that was picking for us, he had to leave his tractor over in the field. He had only water on the radiator, and he drained the water out of the radiator. And we had a great big snowstorm. There was, down by Brownsville, a few hunters died.
Oh, really?
In that storm. They got caught on the river. And right out of town, and around town here there was a few turkey racers, and they lost many hundreds of birds, and that was called the armistice storm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were pretty well stuck out on the farm for a little while after that, right? Because the roads wouldn't be plowed or anything.
No, and then when they come to open the roads, I remember that. They had a caterpillar on steel lugs, you know, didn't have rubber at that time. And the snow was so hard and high deep that the neighbors had to go shovel and break it open.
For the caterpillar to get
So the
through.
caterpillar could break through it, because it wasn't, you know, big like it is today. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Did you ever see a tornado?
No, I never really did, and I don't
That
want
was
to see
good.
one. Yeah, no, I never really seen a tornado.
Were there any bothersome wild animals around? Were there any bad, like, wild animals
Around here?
around your farm?
No, we had fox, of course. You know, the fox used to come and take chickens
Yeah.
if they could get a hold of them. But other than that, I can't say those.
You never saw the rattlesnakes? That was always
No,
the
no
thing I was so
rattlesnakes.
scared of.
Not, and I hate rattlesnakes. But
Me
no
too.
rattlesnakes where we live.
Good.
No.
Do you remember when you got a radio?
Oh yeah, we had a radio when I was maybe in the 30s. Battery radio.
Yeah. So
We used to listen to the Lone Ranger. Can you remember anything about the Lone Ranger?
in the movies, yeah.
Yeah, and a Lone Ranger he rode a horse, and he used to say, the Lone Ranger rides again, and then he'd, hey, and
That was your
that's-
favorite.
and that's how I got my dog to pull me on the sled.
How did you do that?
I used to say, the Lone Ranger rides again, and I'd holler, and then I'd also, he liked to chase horses. So we used to have horses running from one farm to the next. You know, them years, it didn't matter because there was no cars anyway at that time. And anyway, that's how I got him to start pulling me on the sled, and he'd go so fast around the corner sometimes I'd just about fall off.
What kind of a dog was that?
Collie.
The big.
No,
Big
he
and-
wasn't that big. No, he wasn't born about that big. No, but he was a tough little dog.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Did you go to church in town when you were a kid?
Yeah. That's yeah,
I wonder what church that might be. The
Norwegian.
Lutheran one.
Aye.
I suppose that was the only one here, right?
Yeah, that's the only one.
It's not too many Catholics in Spring Grove when you
No,
were a kid.
no, they're not that much. I
No.
mean, it wasn't.
Were there the services in English or in Norwegian?
Both.
They had separate services for.
That's the road what I went thought was English, you know, but they would have Norwegian too, though.
Yeah.
But
I know my dad was confirmed, of course, here, and he was in the first English-speaking confirmation class.
is that right?
Yeah, they still got the pictures at the church.
All right.
Yeah,
I
well,
had
he was
asked-
a lot older than you.
I had Oscar Mickelson he was here for several years.
Was he a good guy?
Yeah. He got a little hoppy at me because I didn't always know my lessons. But other than that, he was a pretty good
That's
guy.
cute. So, I had some questions about school. Do you remember your first teacher?
I gotta go get a picture again.
Okay, let me turn this off.